Hi, Jakob Stief here, the long-haired freaky dude. Today I'm going to review the ancient Grecian tragedy, the Suppliants by Euripides, translated into English by Edward P. Coleridge. Not to be confused with the Suppliant Maidens by Aeschylus. This play deals a lot with burial rites, which to the Greeks were very important. To the Greeks, to not have a loved one buried was to not send them to the afterlife. If a loved one wasn't buried, then they believed that they would never see their loved one again. As such, whenever the body of a family member or a friend is not buried, we see some bizarre things happen. We see some Greeks go to some crazy extents to make sure that the bodies get buried, even risking their own lives to get the bodies buried. The best example of this, I think, is with Antigone by Sophocles, but you can also see a lot of this happen in the Iliad as well. Point being, to us it might not seem that big of a deal, but to them, to the ancient Greeks who were watching this play, who this play was intended for, it meant everything. So context is incredibly important in this case for understanding this play. The play begins with Aethra, the mother of Theseus, and she is praying at an altar with Argos women, a woman whose children were slain in the Battle of Thebes. This was the battle between the twin brothers Polynices and Eteocles, beloved products of incest of the mother-fondling, father-slaying Oedipus. Read Seven Against Thebes by Aeschylus, or Oedipus the King by Sophocles for more backstory on that stuff. Anyways, the Argos fought on Polynices' side, the losing side. This, of course, makes the mothers very angry. So they go to seek Theseus' help, and man, Theseus is just a great character throughout all of Greek literature that I've come across so far. I really wish that we did see more of him. I wish there was more plays specific to Theseus, but there are not, alas. He's usually never more than just a side character, but he's got such a great moral demeanor, and he's such a huge champion of democracy. It's fantastic. It's great. Theseus and the people of Athens ultimately decide that the hierarchy, the patriarchy, the monarchy of Thebes is ultimately abusing the holy rites set in place by the Greek gods. Thebes is defiling ritual rites, and for that, retrieving the dead bodies from them will be a just cause, so the people of Athens go and fight and kill for that, and they ultimately succeed in doing so. They get the bodies there, they end up burning them, the women are all happy. Well, some of the women were unhappy, like one girl who dramatically threw herself onto the funeral pyre of her husband. But, you know, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But that, of course, is not the end. This is a Euripidean play, so of course it ends with a Deus Ex Mashina, a divine intervention from Athena to settle whatever loose ends might have been left at the end of this play. Good play. Once again, I really loved Theseus' presence. Here's a great quote by Theseus. "Good or bad predominates in man, for if it were not so, we should not exist." I like to think that this is true. I mean, it makes sense. If man were indeed inherently evil, then we would have wiped ourselves out by now. But we haven't. But it doesn't mean that we are all inherently good either. Just, at the very least, a majority of people are inherently good. And of course, we can't have a presence of Theseus without a great argument for democracy. I mean, in Greek literature, anytime you see Theseus or Athens, it's almost always to act as a symbol or a promotion for democracy. Very symbolic, very promotional. Anyways, naught is more hostile to a city than a despot. Where he is, there are in the first place no laws common to all, but one man is tyrant, in whose keeping and in his alone the law resides, and in their case equality is at an end. But when the laws are written down, rich and poor alike have equal justice, and it is open to the weaker to use the same languages to the prosperous when he is reviled by him, and the weaker prevails over the stronger, should he have justice on his side. Now, I do question the validity of this reasoning, but it is nonetheless a great stepping stone towards a great government. You know, for example, he assumes that in democracy, justice always prevails. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Sometimes the emotions of the people can overcome their voice of reason and justice, much like it can a tyrant, and it results in the same consequences, though it's less likely to happen with a mob, with a democratic people, but it still happens. And here's another quote. "Where the people are absolute rulers of the land, they rejoice in having a reserve of youthful citizens, while a king counts this a hostile element and strives to slay the leading men, for he fears his power." I do not necessarily agree with him here either. I mean, it really depends on whose side the youth are on. I mean, do you have examples, cases where the youth overcome the despot? Yes, the American Revolution, a great example. But the youth are equally susceptible to the indoctrination of a despotic leader. Just look at the rise of the Nazis. That definitely wasn't accomplished by the elders. That had a lot to do with the youth and bringing people up to cherish this despotic leader. It took 10 years for Hitler to finally get his full power and start trying to take over the world because he had to bring people up first. He had to raise the youth before he could begin fighting. He didn't want to start with the people that were already there, the people who had already had some sort of philosophical background. Now, movements in general are typically done by the young, the youth, on both ends of the spectrum, democratic or despotic. So again, it'd be really cool if it were true, but it really depends on the case, because history has shown us that both youth and elders have fought on either side of the battle. Well, I am Jakob Stief, the long-haired freaky dude. Thank you for watching this book review. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to direct those in the comment section below. Feel free to start a discussion about this play. I'm sure it will be fun. If you love reading books like this or other ancient pieces of literature, then might I suggest checking out my channel, hitting the subscribe button, and following the Great Books Challenge. I'm sure it is something that you would love to do. It will definitely expand your knowledge and your understanding of the world. Well, I'm Jakob Stief, the long-haired freaky dude. Y'all be sure to have a good day now.